So another beautiful day here in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. You can see the beautiful ocean, see the beautiful pool. And today I'm going to share with you a little bit about how I got here, how I went from being a completely broke, fired from my 9-to-5 job, not knowing what to do with my life, insecure, broke, weak, all these things, to now being a multi-millionaire with businesses that kind of pretty much run on their own. I have an insurance agency that I own. I own a real estate investment company, and I've done over $10 million in sales. But more importantly is I get to live life exactly how I built it, right? So that is who I am. My name's Matt Petruso, and today I'm just gonna share with you how I got here, right? So I am 35 years old, and at 16, even 18, this life that I live would have been a dream, right? And that's when sometimes I have to be grateful for what I do have, because everything in life you can look back on, and you can always look in the future, right? You can live in this state of perpetual, I need to have something in the future, but if you live in that state, you can never be grateful for what has been achieved. And that is what I'm here to talk about today, is kind of the journey that I've been on and how I got here. So a little bit of backstory about who I am. My parents, when I was growing up, my formative years between 10 and 12 were kind of chaotic. My dad was an alcoholic. He just didn't really have a grip on reality at this point. So he was drinking a lot, doing a lot of drugs, just living a very chaotic life. And I was kind of in that formative year when I needed a strong role model in my life, and I didn't really have one. So I had to seek external validation for a lot of things. And specifically, I saw what I didn't want in my father, and I never drank, I never smoked, never did any of this stuff, and that was part of my journey, which we'll get into. But yeah, that was a little bit about my childhood. It was a little chaotic, so I wanted control. I wanted control over my life, and that's why I am here today. That was my main motivator, was control. But after that, after high school, and barely kind of getting through high school, I was not a good student, but I got myself through it, right? And I barely got into college. When I applied for college, I applied to all the schools that my friends had applied to, and I didn't get into any of them because I didn't really take school too seriously. So I ended up going to a school where I had to be on probation, where I had to go to tutoring sessions every day for I think a year, to make sure that my GPA was over 3.5. And college, even though I don't use my degree, I don't really recommend college. It was a formative time for me because it forced me and allowed me to figure out that I actually could do something. During those tutoring sessions, it allowed me to see that I could be disciplined, that I could learn, that I wasn't a bad learner that I had already labeled myself as. So it was a good time that I allowed myself to grow in, personally. The education that I got was more, personal development than, actual education from the school system, because the school system's kind of trash, as we know. But yeah, after college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wasn't a natural entrepreneur, but when I got out of college, I did what everybody was told we should do, and it was go and get a safe and secure 9-to-5 job. But when I got that 9-to-5 job, I was miserable. I hated it. I was looking online every day for what are ways to make money superficially, and which is fine because I just wanted to get out of the rat race of hating my life. So I was looking at every single option that I could find, Google AdWords, how to make money online. I was Googling everything. I was just curious. And I tried making websites. None of it worked, right? Like, I tried a whole bunch of stuff that didn't work. And then after a little bit of time at that 9-to-5, even though I didn't know what I was going to be doing, I still needed money. Like, I had no money, so I still needed the job, right? I was still living in scarcity. And at the time, it was very, very difficult, but I went into work one day, and all of a sudden, I hadn't, figured out what I was going to do with myself, but I walked into work, and I was fired without any notice, without any reasoning. I still don't know to this day why I was fired, but it happened. And at the time, it was very, very difficult. I was very emotionally distraught because I was I think 21, 22, something like that. And I still had no purpose. I had no meaning. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and now I had no money. So it was hurtful. It was painful. Even though I hated the job, I still wanted money, right? I still wanted to feel, in purpose. I still wanted to feel like I was providing value at something, and being able to provide for myself. So it was painful, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Being fired from that safe and secure 9-to-5 job was the best thing that literally ever happened in my entire life, because it forced me to be thrown into a very difficult life, and difficult things will create the freedom, right? If you don't ever seek anything difficult, you will not create any control in your life. If you always seek comfort, you will never gain control. So you have to know the duality of life. So when I got fired, I got thrown into door-to-door sales, and I was terrible. I had no people skills, I had no communication skills, but I had enough weight and chip on my shoulder to keep trying and keep knocking on doors, because it hurt. The pain of stopping was worse than the pain of continuing, right? Remember that. Like, you will always do something that is less painful. So the pain of stopping was more painful than continuing. Remember that. So I kept going because I did not want to be a failure. I did not want to, to my father at this point, let him down. I did not want to go back to living a life 9-to-5 on somebody else's terms. So I was willing to go through the painful things of getting doors slammed into my face, getting no's every single day, because I knew the pain of going backwards was much greater than the pain of continuing, okay? So luckily I got a little bit better. I started figuring out how to talk to people, how to communicate, how to provide value, and I worked for an insurance agency knocking on doors for about close to 4 or 5 years. And then at, I think, 26, I left that insurance agency and I started my own. So even though I had built up a good book of business over those 4 or 5 years, I lost all of those people, those clients that I had built, and I moved to the next stage because I knew that I no longer wanted to be, working for somebody else in any capacity. So I always had a desire to just level up, and I knew enough to now go out on my own. And at this point, I had started buying some real estate. I had started, investing in things like that. And I had no children, I had no kids. So the decisions that I made at that point had got me up to a point where I could be a little bit more risky, losing the income that I had from the clients that I had built up. And now I could go on to the next level of starting my own agency. So at 26, I started my own insurance agency. And during that time, I did not care about my logo, did not care about my business card, didn't care about anything, because so many people stop and think that they need to have a perfect business before even getting into the game when nobody even knows who you are, right? So I knew I already had a skill, right? I already knew that I was good at what I did. I already knew I had the skill, but now I had to go get assets, right? Assets were my clients. If I had no assets, nobody knew about my skills, nobody knew about the information that I had, then I could not make any money. So I had to go get the asset, which is the client. And then the only way I could do it, when you're first starting out in any business, there is awareness that you have to bring to the market, right? So the only awareness that I knew at this time was I got to go knock on doors. I got to go see as many people as possible. And that's exactly what I did. So as soon as I started my agency, I didn't set up like a fancy office, any of that stuff. I just started hitting doors. This is now my book of business. These are now my assets. I'm going to go out and I'm going to go get my assets, right? When you first start out in anything, do not try and make it pretty, because nobody cares about pretty if they do not know who you are. Awareness is the first key. And nowadays it's so much easier to get awareness. Like, I had to literally, the only way that I could make people aware of my information and my skill to acquire the assets of my clients is to literally go knock on hundreds of doors a week. I think it's a little bit easier now because I'm literally, hopefully, reaching hundreds of people right now with this video. And it used to take hours and days and thousands of miles traveled to reach the same amount of people you can reach in an instant. The world has changed. You must change, you must evolve, you must adapt. So that is how I went from, getting basically fired to now starting my agency at 26. I obviously acquired assets along the way because I already had the skills. I already had the information. I already had the skills that I acquired over that 5 years of working for somebody else. So now I wanted to level up and bring it into my own business, right? So when I did that, I kept reinvesting into myself, my business, and real estate as well. So that's when I started investing in more real estate properties. Any extra income I would put back into real estate. During that time, I would buy a fixer-upper per se, like usually a 2-unit flat. I would fix up one of the units, rent that out, and then go upstairs, usually live upstairs, fix it out while I'm living there, and do that again. And I would move into another building. And I did that for a number of years while I was simultaneously still building the insurance agency. So I was building assets along the way. So, and not only was I building assets, but I was building information. So everything that I learned in the process, I'm building information. So now the skills that I'm acquiring along the way, I get to keep that. I get to keep all the information. I get to keep all the skills every single time I learn something new. And now on top of it, I'm not just like keeping that information and skills to myself. I'm building assets. I'm acquiring clients, which are my assets. I'm acquiring real estate, which are assets. And obviously the type of experiences along the way, the information, the skills, those are all assets, right? But if nobody knows about the skills, the assets that you have, then nobody's actually going to pay you, right? Like you live in a world where somebody else has to give you something, right? Like you can't just acquire information, sit in your basement and hope people are going to pay you because now you're smart. You may be able to actually do it nowadays with, providing value online, but that's through awareness, right? Like awareness is letting people know that you have information, that you have skills, and now your asset. Like for instance, this video that I'm making today is an asset because I'm sharing information. It's bottling up my story, right? So information, skills, and assets will create freedom, but only if people know about it, right? So that is the process of financial freedom that I go over, and I can teach you more in depth. Hopefully there's a link in the description below to give you a video on that, on how to get a little bit deeper into financial freedom. But beyond that, after I started acquiring these assets, well then the way you stack on top of that is you start leveraging money and people and technology, right? These are the three things that you can level up in. So leverage, right? Like if I have information, I now can share that information with other people to help them get the results that I got. Like I train dozens of insurance agencies agents that work for me. Some stick, some don't, that's okay. But the more people you train, the more people can be successful. I have guys now that both make, 3 of my agents make over 6 figures, and just from the information that I taught them, because I did it, so I taught them how to do it, and it's very beautiful. And now I make a little bit of money off of each one of them. That's great, right? Like that, those are now assets that I have. I've acquired assets in my brain, skills in my brain, and then I leverage it by letting other people become successful off your information. You can do the same thing, but you must start. So that's the first thing. Then second is, I got into real estate, and real estate is a beautiful thing because it's the only thing that, if worst case scenario, you can live in, right? Like I love real estate. It's tangible. I like to see things. My creative flow is appeased by getting into the real estate game. And on top of it, you can do many things with it. You can do long-term rentals. I've switched and transitioned a lot of my rentals into short-term Airbnb rentals. And then on top of that, once you get past the need of, now I just need more money, then I've acquired enough assets in my life that I no longer need money. I can want things, right? And then I can want things that don't have a number return. The number return is when you live in needs. It's a tangible, like, oh, I need a 10% return on my investment, or it's not, plausible to make it sense, right? Okay, if you're still in needs, right? But if you get past the needs of, I need more money, well, then you can start investing in how is the asset of the experience of that type of property. So now I invest only in lifestyle real estate. If the real estate does not give me some type of beneficial return from an emotional standpoint, I don't want it, right? At the beginning, I cared about the cash flow. Now, the cash flow, it's important, right? I'm not going to lose money. I'm not an idiot. But more importantly, is not that 5 or 10%, like I'm not going to nickel and dime over a 2% return on my money if I get this, right? Like, people are playing the wrong game. If you're only seeking superficial, that means you haven't leveled up to the next game. So that's off a little tangent, but that's when you start to play the game and start to play at another level. And how I got here was so different than what I would have expected, right? Like, you might have a desired outcome in your life that you think life is going to hand to you or you're going to get. But really, reality is going to go like this, right? And you might end up way over here and you never even knew that existed. But the beautiful thing about life is if you at least go on the journey, you can figure out what you do like, what you don't like, and then stack what you do like and then negate what you don't like, right? That is the beautiful thing about trying, experiencing, and understanding that your life is different than my life. You might not want the same things as me, and that's okay. But you can still gain the insights on the journey that I went through, right? I hope that you do at least start something. Start today. Do not give up. Just keep learning, keep improving, keep stacking skills, keep stacking assets, keep doing things, and keep understanding that people need to know what you know, and stop being selfish and allow other people to be aware of what you have gained along the journey. So that's why I'm here to help you a little bit, because nobody gave me this stuff. Other than like these videos that I watched on YouTube were really a pivotal piece in my journey. Like when I would drive on these long days to knock on doors, I listened to Tony Robbins. I listened to many motivational speakers, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, all these old timers, man. They were killers, man. These guys kept me motivated. And sometimes you need motivation. It's okay. At the beginning, when you're in that first level, to get above the hump, use whatever you can. Use whatever motivation you can to just cross that threshold. So hopefully I can get you past that threshold so you can live at a higher frequency. Because that is the goal of life, is not to stay in this low frequency and care so much about superficial things, but achieve the superficial things, get everything, and then level up. If you thought this was helpful, if you like my journey, if you want to hear more about my journey, obviously I can't compact all 15 years in a 20-minute long video, but if you are more interested to hear more about me, there should be some links in the description below about how to get in touch, how to connect with me a little bit more. Connect with me on Instagram, MOVMATT. Also, comment, like, subscribe, and comment below if you want to hear something else. If you're interested in how to create financial freedom in your own life, because it will create a higher level of frequency and a higher level of life. So I only hope the best for you and your family and everyone that you love. Peace and be well.